Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto Dragon Bloodline Kekkei Genkai Chunin exams? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Prologue. A lone figure sat on the Hokage monument, more precisely on the fourth Hokage's head. A black cloak covered his body from prying eyes. He had pitch-black spiky hairs with some fringes hiding his left eye. This was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the sole heir of the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans, two of the most secretive clans in the elemental countries. The Uzumaki originated from the Whirlpool's country. For outsiders, they appeared to be a simple clan. Unfortunately for them, Iwa, the hidden ninja village of Earth Country, wiped them out at the start of the Third Secret Shinobi War. The only survivor of the massacre, a girl named Uzumaki Kushina, fled to Konoha, the hidden village of Fire Country. Kushina then became a ninja of Konoha and a very good one at that. Not overly known like some of Konoha's legends, but she was deadly. She married the fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato, before dying, leaving behind two twins, a boy and a girl. Unfortunately the girl, like her mother, was poisoned. She was able to survive the unknown poison but not enough to get out of the coma she was in. But that is a story for another time. Coming back to the Uzumaki, they were a very secretive clan. So much that none, outside the clan, knew they had a bloodline, more precisely a Dojutsu. The reason it was never discovered was that the pupils didn't change upon activation. The eye only had one level, yet it held so much potential. It allowed the user to analyze anything they saw, especially the chakra manipulation used whenever someone casts a jutsu. An accomplished user could easily understand and replicate a jutsu if he so wished. That made them excellent in creating new techniques, as they could clearly see the mechanics behind it. The Namikaze clan was along the same lines but even more secretive. They existed long before the Uchiha and Senju. They helped build Konoha, but erased their implication from history and kept to the shadows. Like the Uzumaki, they were reduced to only one member because of the wars. That last member being Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. The latter died fighting the Kyuubi no Yoko 12 years ago. Like the Uzumaki, they possessed a secret ability, which granted them the name Kekkei. They could create Kekkei, or barrier as they called it, to use against demons, and the like. This wasn't all, of course. The ability revolved around the manipulation of time and space. This information would have labeled them a high threat to anyone. Using this ability, the Yondaime was able to kill a Biju, something that was deemed impossible before then. To this day, no one knows how he did it, only that he was surrounded by a somber energy sphere that disintegrated everything it touched. Another secretive aspect of the clan was their legacy. Indeed, every Namikaze had one duty above all else: to guard an important object under their compound. That's why no outsider ever stepped inside the compound. Not counting the numerous security seals surrounding the place. Still standing on the Hokage monument, Naruto looked at the beautiful sight that was Konoha, sighing and lazing around. The Chunin exams was due to start in a week in Konoha. This event also marked the first time outsiders will learn of his existence. Something that was hidden by the village, until now. Assuming the other countries are not already aware of my existence. I wouldn't be surprised if they were, considering the amount of spies crawling over the village. He told himself while scowling in distaste. He had graduated a year and a half ago, 1 year in advance, and was now 12 years old. After graduating, he had been assigned to a Junin named Matagai, and two teammates, Tenten and Rock Lee. They took their training seriously, but much of his training was done in away from prying eyes. It wasn't that he didn't trust his teammates, well, not really. It is just that he didn't adhere to their methods. What with one of them specializing in taijutsu, and the other in weapons, such foolishness. No one should ever specialize in this world, unless they want a one-way ticket to hell. He had of course told them just that, but like stubborn 5 years old, they didn't listen. Add to that, a stupid Junin sensei encouraging such behavior. Really, the shinobi world has fallen so low. If you haven't noticed by now, then know that Naruto is very disheartened with today's shinobis. That is why he didn't use the same methods for training. He didn't neglect any of the shinobi arts, instead, did his best to train all of them to the best of his capabilities. That is why others thought of him as a genius, but for him, it was just the result of hard work, and a lot of determination. He began his training at the tender age of 5, and since then, hadn't stopped. He first started with chakra control and building his reserves. After that, he learned the academy justice. By his 6th birthday, he had already mastered the bunshin, the kawarimi and the henge no jutsu. Still, his supply of chakra was too small to be any good in the field, so he hid the fact that he could already graduate in favor of more training. Because he couldn't start his physical training, being too young, he used the time to master his mother's dojutsu, the bunsekigen or analytic eye. Around the same time he worked on his stealth, figuring it'd be a good advantage over the current ninjas. Of course, such training method couldn't be expected from a boy his age. So the question was where he found the necessary information. And the answer was the vast Namikaze's library, which contained every subject possible, considering the clan had been alive even before the ninja era. By his 7, Naruto had mastered the bunsekigen to an incredible level. The Dojutsu granted him the ability to see the body even better than the Byakugan. While the Byakugan could see the tenketsus of the target, the bunsekigen could not only see them too, but also weak points in the target's body, like old wounds, weak bones. Those parts glowed yellow under its eyes. But that wasn't all, he could also see the shape the chakra took whenever someone cast a jutsu, be it ninjutsu or genjutsu. His stealth training also progressed well, already being able to reduce his chakra to civilian level. His chakra building and control exercises also paid off considering his reserve had increased to the level of a genin, while his control was equivalent to a high chunin, having mastered the leaf floating and tree climbing exercises. Seeing his results, he proceeded to train in ninjutsu's theory, seals, and taijutsu. Of course, he kept building up his chakra control and reserves. By 8, his reserves were comparable to a high genin, with a control ranging from low to mid-junin level, having mastered water walking. Like all members of his family, he was very proficient in seals, and had progressed to novice level. There were 4 levels in seals: beginner, novice, apprentice and master. With each level, the difficulty increased exponentially, so he knew that at the pace he was going, he wouldn't be able to attain even apprentice level before graduating the academy. So he began searching for ways to increase his training speed. For the ninjutsu's theory, he was able to learn, understand and master the 12 hand signs used to shape justice. Thanks to his bunsekigen, he understood perfectly the workings of the signs. What they did was manipulate the chakra outside the body, for it to take a precise shape. Each hand seal gave a precise shape to the chakra. But that wasn't all. He made a very huge discovery when he looked at the shape formed by the chakra when he used the bunshin no jutsu. The shape looked similar to the shape taken by seals, and using the latter as a basis, he was able to devise a language akin to seals. Using this language, he found himself able to read the final shape of any jutsu like a book, and then understand everything about it. This was huge, because he could now understand everything about a jutsu with but a look. He could find its objectives, strengths, weaknesses, elemental nature, and so on. He could even significantly reduce the number of seals needed to cast the jutsu, because its most important aspect was the final chakra shape created by the mixing of all the hand seals. In other words, if he found a shortcut, he could reduce the seals' number. He also started working on manipulating his chakra outside his body using just his concentration. Thus begin his meditations exercises to increase his mental control. That same year, he was supposed to enter the Ninja Academy. Not that he had been very thrilled, as he guessed correctly, It had cut down his training time. By his 9, he had immensely improved, thanks to a discovery he made earlier in the year. Indeed, while searching for a way to increase his training speed, he came across the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A jutsu that allowed its user to create a clone with half his chakra. What made the technique so special was its ability to transfer back to the user everything his clones learned, except the physical stuff. Unfortunately, it used way too much chakra, thus remained unattainable for Naruto with his little reserves. Even Chunin couldn't create more than 5 at a time, for a long period or for training purpose. But he didn't give up and instead studied the manipulation of chakra done by the cross-shaped seal of the jutsu. The results were stunning to say the least. He had assumed the manipulation of chakra behind the cross-shaped seal would be simple, but this was far from the truth. The shape created by the seal was extremely complex with layers upon layers of information. Fortunately, thanks to his Dojutsu, he decoded it completely, and was then able to copy the aspect of the jutsu he was interested in, like the part that made the knowledge return to the original and the independence of the clone thoughts. Then he learned the Tsuchi Bunshin or Earth Clone, before modifying it to implement the parts he took from the Kage Bunshin. Before, the Earth Clone used 3 hand seals, but now, it used 7. His tweaking over, his newly created Earth Clone could now send back to the original everything they learned except the physical stuff. They also weren't dependent to the original, and could properly function at more than 5 miles from the user. Another test later and Naruto discovered he could sustain 50 advanced Earth clones for a training day. It could have been higher if he had mastered Earth elemental manipulation. Using this new training method, he was able to increase his chakra control to a staggering low Kage level, although his reserve didn't increase much and he found himself with low Chunin chakra level. His progress in seals were astounding to say the least, and were close to apprentice level. At the same time, he trained in a taijutsu style called the 18 Dragon Palms. It was a style that relied heavily on palm strike and speed, but could be even more devastating than the Jukin if mastered. By his 10, he had finally mastered chakra control to a level even surpassing Tsunade of the Sannin thanks to the clone training and his relatively low reserves. He was an accomplished apprentice in seals and would soon reach the rank of master. His stealth training had done more than he could hope for. Being able to completely mask his entire existence, even from sensor ninjas, was no small feat. He could stand beside someone yet he wouldn't be sensed unless the person was directly looking at him. Additionally, he learned the skill sensor ninja used and could now find anyone he knew in a mile radius. It was around that time he started learning genjutsu's theory, pursuing his desire to learn everything he could. Most of all, he hadn't forgotten his dream of healing his sister, so he planned to devote a lot of time to the medicinal arts. By the time of his graduation, which was at 11 years old, he once again increased his chakra reserve to a mid-Chunin level. He had mastered his seal studies, and was now a master of it. He did the same with the dragon palms, and was now learning the piercing dragon, a style that relied heavily on the lower limbs, and fight in mid-air. He learned the way of the medic nin and was now a certified field healer. The most important thing about that year was that he created several seals. Among them were 2 very special seals. The first one was the gravity seal, which allowed the user to increase the gravity around their body. The second one was the density seal, which increased the air resistance beside the user. The 2 combined would increase the speed and strength of the user tremendously. He was a ninja, who heavily believed in speed after all, like his father had, before him. After his graduation, he was assigned to Team 9 with Maeda Guy as Junin Sensei, and Rock Lee and Tenten as teammates. The team had been Genins to this day, which was about a year and a half. During that time, he trained his speed and strength using his seals and now he was at a level of a high Junin when it came to it. His chakra level increased to low Junin. Alone from the prying eyes of his teammates, he learned and mastered his elemental affinities which were wind and earth. Using his clones for training, he mastered them to perfection, which also increased the number of clones he could create for his training. His medical abilities increased extremely well, to the point where only Tsunade of the Sannin surpassed him, so his fellows claimed. He also mastered the second taijutsu style he learned, the piercing dragon. Finally, he started his training in his Kekkei bloodline. The training was very complex and was used by generations upon generations of namikaze. It involved much meditation and focus training, as the power and resistance of the barrier he created were directly linked to his will and focus. As of today, his barrier could resist a B-rank jutsu at most. But overall, it was very good. Right now, his overall level was about high Chunin to low Junin, due to his lack of experience. But that was when he fought fairly or in a direct fight. Using his speciality, which lay in the shadows, he could even give a Sannin a run for his money. Naruto looked at Konoha, before sighing. How the mighty have fallen. To think that such an once powerful village would let others trample on them. Soon, I will return it to its glory and then I'd unleash my plan. He thought before sinking into the ground as if he was made of earth too. Suna was one of the 5 great shinobi villages, although considered as the less powerful of the 5. An explanation to this status was the lack of water and food readily available for the villagers. Suna being situated in an arid and sandy area, it was understandable. Another reason for their status was the village lack of number in term of ninja, as they favored quality over quantity unlike other villages. They greatly invested in the training of their young ninjas, which was the reason behind the concept that Suna genin are usually more powerful than the other countries' genins. If their status wasn't enough, a little over 4 years ago, the daimyo of Wind Country reduced the amount of missions he gave them. Those missions were lost to Konoha. That didn't sit well with them, as they were then forced to reduce their staff now that they had too many ninjas for too little missions. This in turn decreased their power significantly. It came to a point where they couldn't take it anymore, and when the traitorous Sannin, Orochimaru, came to them, proposing them a very interesting and daring plan to attack Konoha, they leapt at the opportunity. Succeeding in their endeavor would allow them to regain their daimyo's trust and power. As a side effect, deal a huge blow to Konoha, and obtain their deserved revenge. The plan was rather simple. Use the Chunin's exams to launch a surprise attack on Konoha. The latter would, not only be surprised, but forced to protect every noble that came to watch the finals, unless they wanted to lose face in the eyes of the public. After all, no one would want to hire a bunch of ninjas to protect them in this wild world, if they couldn't even protect their guests in their own village. But before that, they had to understand Konoha's security measures as much as possible. Which is the reason for the current gathering in the War Council room. Early that day, the Intelligence Division received an important information about their future target. One that could very well change the tide of the soon-to-be invasion. Inside the room were gathered the heads of various departments, including the elders of the village. Among them were the Sabaku children and their sensei Baki, a powerful and well-known Junin. This team was present because the information pertained to their future mission in Konoha. The room was silenced when an indescribable masked ninja appeared. He bowed to those present before the head of the council, which was the Kekkei, spoke. It has come to our attention that you have received an important missive concerning Konoha. He asked without preamble. The Anbu nodded, and upon being given the signal to elaborate, he opened a scroll and looked at the audience. As you certainly know, we had been able to plant several spies in Konoha. But none of them were able to obtain this information until recently. He paused to give everyone time to digest what he had already said. It had seemed that the Yondaime Hokage, at which everyone flinched, as they remembered how powerful he was, had a son. 1. Like a broken dam, yells came from everywhere. The screams were that of surprise, fear and even disbelief. None of them had liked the Yondaime for the simple reason that he was the only ninja to ever attain the SS rank with a flea on sight order. His power was so great that he could wipe out several platoons of ninjas in the blink of an eye. This was just how scary the man was. Additionally, he was the first and only ninja to kill a biju. And the most powerful one at that. To this day, no one knew how he did it. Only that the ability he used was either a bloodline or a secret jutsu he created, as he was rumored to be an inventor of a sort. Stacking these information, the idea of him having a son, was just unthinkable. Such a thing would no doubt be the catalyst of another shinobi war. No village worth its salt wanted the rise of a ninja of such caliber again. Controlling him would be such a nightmare. Silence, yelled the Kekkei, silencing everyone, before returning his gaze to the masked ninja. Is it possible your man made a mistake? He coldly questioned the spokesman. Unlikely Kekkei, Sama. I see. His head lowered, the Kekkei took his time to analyze the situation. Meanwhile, Baki and his team harbored a frown on their faces. Nay, Baki, sensei, why are everyone so frightened at the idea that the Yondaime Hokage had a son? It is not like it'd change anything, nay. Tamari, the elder daughter of the Kekkei, wondered. Baki looked at her before answering. You wouldn't understand because you haven't witnessed that man in action. The Yondaime, just by himself, brought Iwa and Kumo to his knees. That was just how powerful he was. He could have wiped out those two villages but decided not to. When the shinobi world learned of his death while fighting the Kyuubi, they rejoiced, because him alive meant that Konoha could conquer any village, even if all of the great villages were allied. He paused to confirm that his students were listening. Him having a son means somewhere out there, a boy holds the potential to become just as dangerous as he was. I wouldn't be surprised if he was trained from an earlier age to be as powerful as the Yellow Flash. And heaven forbid, if his son learned the technique that made his father famous, or the one he used to kill the Kyuubi, then our operation is doomed to fail. He finished grimly, conveying to the genins just how dire the matter was. At least two of them anyway, as the third one with red hair, simply shrugged. The Kekkei looked again at the Anbu. What else did the spies learn about him? The masked ninja peered at the scroll for a moment, before answering grimly. The spy wasn't able to learn much more, as he came across this information only because Konoha intends to show him off to the world. That made everyone in the room narrow their eyes. Though he did learn that the Yondaime indeed had a bloodline that allowed him to kill the Kyuubi, and rumors has it that his son is learning how to use it. That did it, as several council members shouted in anger and fright. It was easy to understand their distress, as their plan was based on the fact that no one in Konoha could stop the rampaging Ikibi once it was unleashed. But with the presence of the Yondaime's son, and his apparent ability to kill a biju, they were in a very dangerous position. And apparently the Sabaku children realized it too, if the widening of their eyes was anything to go by. But the masked ninja wasn't finished, and after the calm was restored, he continued. The spy was also able to determine the likely person, using the participants in the Chunin's exams. He looked at the Kekkei who muttered, "Go on." The participant who fit the criteria and age is called Naruto. No first name was available, which further increased the spy's suspicions. Age 12, which also confirms the apparent birth of said heir. He began the academy at 7 and graduated at 11, as the rookie of his year. His current team is composed of Rock Lee, a taijutsu specialist, and Tenten, a weapons specialist, with their sensei being Meta Guy. He paused a moment for everyone to digest what he just said before continuing. He is rumored to be a prodigy just like his father. He doesn't favor any shinobi arts, as he was exceptional in all of them. He is even rumored to have delved in seals just like his father. One thing to note is that he was far stronger than the Hyuga genius, Hyuga Neji, who is now a very well-known Chunin, as Neji graduated second in the academy, behind him. The only reason he's still a genin is that his sensei wanted them to take the exam in Konoha. Lastly, he is an accomplished medic nin say to be almost on par with Tsunade of the Sanin. At that everyone widened their eyes even further, clearly stunned by the information. While the Kekkei was silently analyzing everything he heard, while fuming on the inside. How have we missed this until now? It'd seem that Konoha still has many tricks under their sleeves. That aside, considering the abilities presented, it looks like he favored medicine over everything. But why is that? Such talented ninja wouldn't favor this in art just like that. He must have a reason for this. He looked again at the masked ninja. Is there a reason for his focus on medicine? The audience seemed surprised, not having thought of such peculiar choice of career. There is Kekkei, Sama. Apparently the boy has a twin sister who has been in coma for the last 12 years. So the spy theorized that its objective is to heal his sister. Hearing this, the wheels turned inside the Kekkei's head. Is there any way to gain access to his sister? The coldness in his voice reminded everyone just why he was said to be the most ruthless Kekkei in history. None, unfortunately. After an assassination attempt on her, which ended in a failure, the boy removed her from the public hospital and is now taking care of her by himself. Rumors has it that she is safely tucked in the Namikaze's compound, which is not only in an undisclosed area, but also inaccessible by anyone not of Namikaze's blood. Finished the ninja, much to everyone's disappointment. But the Kekkei wasn't deterred by that and gazed at the Sabaku's team. Team Sabaku, your new mission during the second part of the Chunin exams will be to learn everything there is to know about the boy, and if possible, he looked at specifically at the red-headed boy, kill him. Am I clear? He finished harshly, to which they responded in the affirmative. You're all dismissed until further notice. The Kekkei said before standing and going out of the chamber in a foul mood. Unknown area close to Fire and Raya's borders. At the same time, two people were holding another meeting. One of this people was the most sought-after traitor of Konoha, the snake Sannin Orochimaru. In front of him was his right-handed man Yakushi Kabuto. The object of their meeting was also concerning the recently revealed heir of the Namikaze clan. Kabuto had just finished informing Orochimaru of the Namikaze heir, and to say the Sannin was furious would be an understatement. He was gnashing his teeth, silently fuming. So even in death that bastard of Namikaze spits on me. Not only did he took away my rightfully position as Hokage, but now I learn that his child is alive and kicking. Damn him to hell. If I could, I'd raise him from the dead just to kill him again. Kabuto gave his master a moment to calm himself, before continuing his report. While I couldn't learn much about him, I did discover a peculiar ability of his. It'd seem that he's able to sense people around him like a sensor ninja. This was confirmed when I found myself unable to get close to him without being detected. So you should approach him with great caution, if that's your goal. Orochimaru didn't seem to have heard him as the snake Sannin was deep in thought. Waiting for his reply, Kabuto recalled the time he tried to spy on the boy. It was during one of the Namikaze's team training session. Because of Maeda Guy's presence, he was forced to approach with great caution. It had been difficult, but in the end, he had been able to fool the Junin's senses, getting close enough to the team to observe the training session. Despite this success, he quickly found out that Naruto was aware of his presence. This was confirmed when the boy had looked pointedly at his hiding position. While Naruto had stayed impassive, he couldn't help but feel like the boy was mocking him, finding it laughable that he tried to sneak behind him. Yet Naruto never mentioned his presence to his teammates, a fact that had troubled him greatly. The boy was simply too hard to read, he had concluded that day. Were you able to ascertain his relationship with the upper members of the village? He heard Orochimaru's question, to which he promptly replied. I was. There is a subtle disagreement between Sarutobi and him. From what I was able to gather, his views of the shinobi world are more aligned to those of Danzo. This could explain the close relationship between the two. Orochimaru chuckled a bit. So Sarutobi wasn't able to convert him to his view. At least he's more intelligent than his father if he was able to escape the Sandame's brainwashing. 2 praise instead of 1 for the Chunin exams, this is getting better and better. Cuckoo. He laughed creepily before sinking underground, leaving behind a sighing Kabuto. At last he's gone. With him around, I always feel like my life is in danger. Thought Kabuto before going back to Konoha, his meeting already forgotten. In Konoha, Namikaze's compound. A week passed since then, and it was finally the day of the Chunin exams. While other competitors were resting for the exam, Naruto was sitting in a special room, in the Namikaze compound, training. He didn't care about resting because he knew every stage of the exam, thanks to his spying activities. He knew that for the first exam, nothing physically tenuous was involved, so he wasn't that worried. Being a man who valued knowledge, whenever he could, he'd spy on anyone to acquire new information. Be they allies or enemies. He sat in a lowland with some small trees. Surrounding him were hundreds of flying crows. Though he kept his eyes closed in concentration. 106 crows surrounding me. He thought, with his right hand in the ram seal. A moment later, he opened his eyes and started moving his right wrist. The movement was so fast, only a blur was each movement. One of the crows was confined within a green square barrier. Despite their panicked and erratic movements, none of the birds escaped. And after only 20 seconds, every crows had been captured. His task done, Naruto slowly exhaled before rising from the ground. Alpha, end of the training, waiting for the results. He voiced, seemingly to himself. A moment later, the surrounding area vanished, leaving Naruto standing in the middle of a white room. Suddenly a voice was heard above him. Subject: Naruto Namikaze. Result of test number 10. Accuracy: 9 out of 10. Speed: 5 kekkais per second. Strength: 10 out of 10. The subject is allowed to advance to level 11 for further training. Naruto smiled a little at that. Finally, it's over. Another step closer to reaching father's level. And then, I will surpass him. He stared at the room once again, still surprised by its capabilities. The Namikaze, being master of seals, designed this room in a way that it created a sentient artificial intelligence. The latter's purpose was to provide the perfect training method and exercise to the Namikaze clan members. More specifically, to correctly learn how to use their bloodline. The room also sorted the exercises in gradual levels. This way, the trainee was sure to get the training adapted to their level. While Naruto didn't know the last level of this program, he knew that his father last recorded level was 25. He was using this as a basis to know which level he needed to reach until he deemed himself strong enough. With his training completed for the day, he went back to his room to clothe himself. He wore black Anbu pants, with a black sleeveless muscle t-shirt. Above it was a black jacket. Finally, he had a fingerless glove on his right hand. That was to hide the symbol of a Namikaze's heir that was on his palm. He didn't want anyone to see it, considering the number of people out there who would recognize and understand its meaning. Finally ready for the day, he stepped out of his compound and moved toward the rendezvous point he and his team agreed upon. In front of the ninja's academy, Lee and Tenten were waiting for their third teammate Naruto, in front of the academy building. While waiting, they thought about their accomplishments since they became a team. First was Tenten. She was probably the weakest of the team, but despite this, she was still very powerful by Genin standard in her opinion. But she also knew that Naruto found her and Lee weak. And he had made his thoughts well known. She specialized in weapons fighting, something her teammate disagreed with. But what could she do? Unlike clan members, she didn't have special abilities. She was average in genjutsu and taijutsu, thanks to Guy. But that was it. Because she was an orphan, she was forced to train by herself, considering Guy was a taijutsu specialist, not really her strong point. She had always wondered why she had been placed in such a team. The Junin sensei couldn't train her, and she had come up with the answer that the higher-ups didn't think she would amount to anything, and didn't want to waste resources on her. She still remembered Naruto's parting words the first time they trained together. You always say that you want to be as powerful as Tsunade of the Sannin. Do you think that she became that powerful by specializing so much in one area? Nevertheless, you really should be more cautious about who you want to emulate, always saying that Tsunade is the best, and yada yada. It could come to bite you in the end. Even now, she still didn't know what he meant by that. In regard to Lee, he was a taijutsu specialist. Born with the curse of not being able to use chakra for ninjutsu, he has been mocked and ridiculed by his peers in the academy and was called dead last. This left a profound mark on his psyche, more than he knew at the moment. Since becoming a member of Team 9, he was given special training by Guy, and had progressed extremely in taijutsu. Of course, he knew that Guy was favoring him, and also that some of the techniques he learned were surprising good to counter the style his teammate Naruto had shown, but he didn't think much about it. Something he disliked though, was the way Naruto kept putting him down. Always saying that he should have become a samurai with his mentality. He hated it so much to a point that every time he saw Naruto, he wanted to ram a kunai in his head. Indeed, his hate was that high. Unfortunately, he wasn't ready to fight against someone like Naruto. He knew that in a fight, Naruto would destroy, no question asked. After all, his growing resentment made him quite aware of Naruto's capabilities. That's how he noticed something scary about his teammate, something that sent shiver up his spine every time he thought about it. And that was the way Naruto fought. Which he concluded was like a true shinobi. Silently, stealthily, and without mercy. A style completely opposed to his, and 1,000 times more effective. On several occasions he tried to copy Naruto's skills, like moving without leaving any traces, but he couldn't achieve it. Something that Naruto laughed in front of his face. One day I will make him beg for mercy for everything he did to me, he thought viciously with a cold smirk. Something that didn't go unnoticed by Tenten, who frowned at that. They were about to enter the academy without Naruto when a person appeared in front of them, silently as always. I didn't make you wait too much, I hope. Naruto with emotionlessly. His teammates simply shrugged before they made their way to the examinations room. A few minutes later, Tenten and Naruto were waiting just behind the door of the examinations room, for Lee. Just a moment ago, they came across Team 7 composed of Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura and Sai. After a little altercation with some Chunins, Lee asked them to go ahead, and that he would follow. Of course Naruto immediately knew that he wanted to fight the Uchiha, a big mistake in his opinion. That is why he sent a clone to spy on them. That is how he knew that his fight against the Uchiha was rather short, with Lee easily the winner. He was extremely disappointed by the level of the Uchiha, considering the rumors he had heard from the villagers, but now, he vowed to never trust villagers and anyone for that matters without checking the information first. Unfortunately, something happened during the confrontation that bothered him. At that moment, Lee came back, before stopping in front of them. And he was immediately berated by Tenten. What took you? She wondered, glaring at Lee, who raised his arms in defeat. Ma Tenten-chan, I was just testing something. And you couldn't test it before the exam. Nah, but now everything is fine, we can go kick some asses, nay Naruto. He finished looking at Naruto smiling. But the boy could tell that it was faked, something that made him narrow his eyes. He turned without even glancing at Lee, walking towards the door, but just before opening it, he addressed Lee. I knew you were stupid, but this is the icing of the cake. You used the Kage Buyo against an Uchiha while he had the Sharingan activated. What do you think happened? At that, Lee's eyes widened. Oh shit, I forget about the copying ability. Damn, I just gave him my technique, thought a frustrated Lee, before looking back at Naruto as if he had a revelation. How did you know about my fight with the Uchiha? He asked, which shocked Tenten. He fought the Uchiha, is he mad? She thought. Naruto, still not looking, answered, it doesn't matter how I know. What matter thought is the fact that you gave away information about me. He replied icily, while turning around to look at Lee in the eyes. I don't care if you give information about yourself to possible enemy, but when you start giving them on me, then it concerns me. Each words were said with such a flat voice that even Tenten was frightened. Despite this, she couldn't help but notice that Lee wasn't cowed in the least. What happened to you, Lee? You've become like this ever since our last mission in Rice Country, she thought sadly. This led me to believe that you had an ulterior motive in giving him that information. Like you wanted to attract attention towards me, said Naruto. At that moment, Lee's eyes squinted a little, almost unnoticeably to anyone. But unfortunately for him, Naruto wasn't just anyone and saw it. I see, he said slowly, before reaching a pocket on his jacket, and retrieving a black scroll with the Lee's initials on it. That stunned his two teammates, having an idea of what it was. You remember when I said that I was looking into your disability to find a way for you to use chakra? Naruto questioned a stunned Lee, who nodded. Then you will be glad to hear that I finished it sometimes ago. I was just waiting for you to give me a good reason to give it to you. But after what you just did. Suddenly, Naruto sent chakra in a special spot on the scroll. Immediately, said scroll bursted in flames, before leaving only ash. This happened in front of the shocked eyes of both Tenten and Lee. I hope for your sake that we aren't put against each other in this tournament, said Naruto, whirling around and leaving the two still shocked teens. After a moment, Tenten too left, leaving Lee alone. Soon though, the shocked look transformed into a wicked smirk. As if I care about what you think of me and that stupid scroll for that matter. Someday I will make you pay. And this day will come sooner than you think. He thought before following his team inside the room while touching his chest, smirking at what he felt just above it. If someone were still in the same room, they would have felt the sinister chakra that was emanating from Lee just for an instant, before it completely disappeared. Team 9 stood in front of their assigned gate, one of the entrances that led to the Forest of Death. They were waiting for the signal that would announce the start of the second part of the Chunin exam. Silence reigned there as they kept their mouths shut. But that was to be expected. After all, they weren't hailed as the strongest genin team of Konoha for nothing. They knew when to joke around and when to be serious. And in this case they had to be serious. The first part of the exams was interesting to say the least, despite being uneventful. Nothing worth mentioning happened. Unless you were named Naruto. He was, after all, an information gathering specialist. During the test, he gathered much information that would prove useful in the near future. The test consisted in displaying your ability to retrieve secret information from an enemy without being caught or detected. Said enemy could be anything, ranging from a civilian to a ninja. Of course, the Chunin examinee needed to understand the goal of the test in the first place, before even trying anything. Only then was he required to design a ploy to acquire said information by any means necessary, like stealing or cheating. In this case, the information was the answers to the written test given to them. During the test, Naruto had observed the methods used by foreign and local ninjas to cheat, and was sorely disappointed. None of them used a completely undetectable method. The most disappointing, though, was the fact that the Uchiha and the Hyuga weren't disqualified for using their dojutsu, which was clearly visible for anyone to see. But it was to be expected with a village favoring those with bloodline limit. It was a little ironic considering the fact that he himself had been and still was favored because he had a bloodline. Anyway, before the start of the exam, a genin by the name of Yakushi Kabuto, which Naruto recognized as the one who tried to spy on him and his team in the past, gave the other Konoha genins information about the ninjas taking part in this exam. More specifically Sabaku no Gaara from Suna and Rock Lee from the Leaf. When the Uchiha pried for information about Naruto, the latter immediately used a modified Kawarimi to vanish the card containing information about him, thoroughly disappointing more than one person in the room. The action went unnoticed and in the end, no one was able to find anything on him. And finally, during the written exam, he noticed two ninjas spying on him. The first was the female ninja on the sand team. while the other was a grass kunoichi. Using his Bunsekigener analytic eye, he learned that the grass kunoichi wasn't who she appeared to be, but someone else because he could see behind her face, the face of Orochimaru the snake Sanin. That disgusted him thoroughly. He almost lost his lunch there because of it. Nevertheless, he used this great opportunity to analyze the snake Sanin, hoping to find any weakness or something about him that could help should he be forced to fight against him. He also took care of memorizing his chakra signature, so he could track him easily or be aware of his presence in the vicinity. Team 9 regained their awareness when they heard a high-pitched sound that seemed to come from everywhere. It signaled the start of the second part of the exam. Around the same time, the gate in front of them was swung sideways, giving them a clear view of the forest of death. Okay guys, let's go. Lee yelled enthusiastically, before the group jumped on the trees in front of them, to quickly move through the forest. They had already come up with a strategy, which consisted in following Naruto as he guided them to one of the closest team, so that they could steal their scroll. The three were jumping from trees to trees rather quickly, and for anyone who happened to look at them, only a blur would be discernible. They moved like that for a little over 20 minutes before Naruto abruptly stopped, forcing the others follow suit and look around for any threats. When they found none, they stared at Naruto, who was still looking ahead with a frown on his face. Why have you stopped? Tenten asked Naruto with a questioning look on her face. Still looking ahead, he replied. There is a ninja's team approximately 100 meters from here. Then why have we stopped that far away? Lee asked in surprise. Naruto thought for a moment on the way he should answer before making his mind. Simple. One of them has some talent as a sensor. If we kept moving toward them like we did, he would have sensed us and immediately alerted the others of our presence. Or rather both of your presence, considering you two lack the necessary skill to hide your energy. At first, the two nodded their head in understanding, but when Naruto mentioned their shortcomings, they clenched their fists a little in silent anger. That bastard, were their thoughts. Then what are we supposed to do then, oh great one? The sarcastic tone wasn't lost by anyone, prompting Tenten to muffle her giggles. Naruto didn't pay any mind to it, and calmly moved forward. Simple, oh lower one, I will take care of that. Just before he disappeared, leaving no trace at all, not even a smoke, simply nothing. That shocked the two to silence. He is improving every day. At this rate, I won't ever catch up to him, thought a frustrated Lee. Tenten also thought something close to it, but let it go. With the foreign team, Takeshi was a very practical and underhanded ninja. He used everything at his disposal to reach his goals. One of those was to become the leader of AIM country. He knew that to reach such position, he'd have to become not only very powerful, but somehow acquire several supporters. Unfortunately for him, his plans went down the drain for one simple reason: pain. He hated that name so much. To him that name was the worst thing in the whole world. Oh, he had hated many things in his life. He had despised his parents for not being members of a great clan. He had despised his father for being a weak-hearted fool who couldn't stomach war and abandoned the ninja force. He had despised ninjas from clans who looked down on him. Most of all, he had hated himself for his lack of bloodline. Yet nothing compared to the hate he held for the name Pain, although hearing that name brought him a feeling of fear and many more. But he was right to fear that name, or rather the owner of that name. He had been disgusted at first by Hanzo the Salamander's defeat at the hand of the supposed god of AIM Pain. What disgusted him was the fact that someone as legendary as Hanzo couldn't even beat a rookie upstart as he had thought Pain to be. But those thoughts were quickly dismissed after witnessing said upstart murder in cold blood anyone related to the late Hanzo. Be they children or women, he killed them all, leaving no one alive. If you were among Hanzo folds, you were immediately executed. The ruthlessness of that event brought him back to the reality, and he immediately switched side as many others did, as they knew they had little to no chance of beating someone that could level their village instantly. No matter, he still kept his training as if nothing happened. After all, his motto was "and still as the strong dominate the weak." So when he was given the mission to gather any available information about the newly revealed heir of the Namikaze clan, he jumped at the chance to prove himself and further advance in rank. His team and he were calmly walking in the forest without a care in the world. After all, they may be genin officially, but truthfully each of them was at least mid-chunin. They were walking in a triangle formation, with Takeshi in the front and the other two behind. Suddenly, he heard a rattling coming from the bushes on his left. Listening to their hard-gained reflex, the three turned their heads towards the sound to see a squirrel. Unfortunately for them, by turning their head, they completely opened their right side, and it was with no surprise that three Senbons flew to their exposed neck. They noticed the sound too late, because Senbons didn't make as much sound as kunais. The Senbons pierced their neck in a specific pressure point, immediately putting them in a false state of death. But because of the poison coated on the weapons, they quickly suffocated to death. They died not even knowing why, how or who killed them. The only thing they had in mind at that time being, what is a squirrel doing in a forest like this? And then, a shadow fell just beside the bodies, before going through their belonging, finding the heaven scroll. The shadow also quickly took every weapons they had, which disappeared in a puff of smoke. Then it quickly did hand seals before a stream of fire erupted from his mouth, burning the bodies to ash. And as if it wasn't even there, the shadow disappeared again, having removed any traces of a fight in the area. With Team 9, Naruto was gone for a little over 20 minutes and Tenten and Lee were still waiting for him to come back. They were about to move toward the foreign team, when a shadow fell from a tree, just behind them. They whirled around, kunai in hands, before they sighed when they recognized the shadow as Naruto. "What the hell? I told you to stop doing that," yelled Tenten as silently as she could, not wanting to reveal their position to anyone. Naruto just looked at her apathetically, before he removed a rather large scroll from his back. It was a heaven scroll unfortunately. His teammates seeing he wouldn't elaborate further just nodded with a shake of the head. "Okay, let's move to the next target then. Maybe next time we'll get lucky," Tenten said before jumping to a branch, quickly followed by her two companions. Outside, Lee appeared calm while following his teammates, but inside he was in turmoil. He still couldn't wrap his mind on the way Naruto fought. Not even a sound or anything signaling that a battle was taking place. Were his thoughts. He had always known that Naruto was dangerous, very much so, but until now, he hadn't realized just how much. He decided to let it go for now, focusing on finding an earth scroll to pass this exam, first. Hokage Tower. Walking casually in the hallway of the Hokage Tower was a man easily recognizable. He was of average height and had the right part of his face wrapped in medical bandages. The left part of his face was unblemished, showing a hardened face. And the look in his eyes could freeze even a dead man. It was the look of someone who had witnessed everything possible, especially the dark side of humanity. He also had his right arm encased in a cast, showing that he either had a fractured arm or an unusable one. All in all, he looked quite like an actor in a horror movie. He was walking steadily toward his destination. Before long he stopped in front of a rather beautiful door, decorated with different jewels. Beside the door stood another office, where a woman was positioned. He looked at her and said without preamble, "The Hokage is expecting me." The secretary looked from her documents, taking a short time to recognize the person and quickly replied, "Of course Danzo, Sama, you can go ahead." Absent-mindedly nodding, he knocked upon the door. Once he heard the permission to enter, he wasted no time in pushing it open, and moving inside, the door closing behind him. Inside the office, Sarutobi was speaking with his advisors when he heard the knock at the door. Knowing who was behind it, considering they had an appointment, he allowed the visitor to come inside. Upon seeing the person in question, he couldn't help but be reminded of the reason why everything went to hell 7 years ago. Homura and Kaharu didn't miss the sad look on Sarutobi's face, but chose to stay silent, considering the meeting they were about to have. Greetings Hokage. Dono. Kaharu. Dono. Homura. Dono. It has been a long time since we convened together. Begun Danzo. Indeed it has Danzo. Dono. Indeed it has. Answered Kaharu for the three. So what can I do for you? After all, there must be a very important reason for the three of you to organize such a meeting. Continued Danzo, opting to put any banter aside as he was a very busy man. The three were silent at that, not having expected Danzo to go straight to the point. Usually, the latter would try to get around the topic to distract his opponents. Opponents, because they all knew that any kind of conversation between them was the closest thing to a ninja battle. They still regained their composure though, before Sarutobi took charge of the meeting. I'm sure you already know what this meeting is about. Danzo sighed at that, having expected such a thing. You still blame me for what happened between you and the Namikaze, don't you? Are we wrong to do so? Answered Homura this time, the frustration clearly visible on his face. Need I remind you all that it was the three of you who used that seal on him in the first place? Said Danzo, still as calm as ever. Or maybe you forgot just how happy you were to have another Namikaze in your clutch, to the point of showing off in my face. At this the three stayed silent, contemplating his words. Oh, they knew it was their fault for everything that happened, but they simply didn't want to admit their mistake. Especially when it had such aftereffect. Regardless of what happened in the past, we'd like for you to distance yourself from Namikaze-san. This time it was Sarutobi who talked, frostily gazing at Danzo, hoping to make him lose composure or at least his tight control over his emotions. But he was having no such luck. You seem to think that I am forcing him to do whatever it is you are thinking. Last time I remember, it was him who sought me out and not the other way around. I didn't try to approach him. He came to me. And for a simple reason. At this Danzo smirked a little, which caused those present in the room to narrow their eyes. And what possible reason would a child like him have to seek you out? Sarutobi shot. Danzo took his sweet time to answer this. He liked to play around with his former teammates. It made him feel in control of everything. Be in control. That is what he strived for. He wanted to be in control of everything. He didn't like surprise, one of the reason he created a spying network that almost rivaled Jiraiya's own. Seeing the restless look on the Hokage's advisors and knowing they were at the limit of their patience, he finally answered. The reason he came to me is that Namikaze and I are alike. Seeing the confused look in Sarutobi's eyes, he proceeded to elaborate. Namikaze, like myself, thinks that there cannot exist peace in this world. That no matter what, wars will always exist. The only thing we can do is push back the inevitable. He, like myself, saw the way your policy was weakening our village. To take action against this, he did the only thing sensible at the time. He sought after someone, in the higher echelons, who shared his outlook of the world. That is how he came to me. Not because of any manipulations I did, but because of your lack of an adequate policy. He finished looking at the three in front of him with a small smile. The three were stunned to hear this. They had always wondered why Naruto, the son of the Yondaime Hokage, a man who strongly advocated against wars of any kind, was doing with a man like Danzo. A man well known for his love of wars and struggles. And to hear that it was simply because of the same outlook they had on how to run the village was mind-blowing. The three looked at each other, having a silent conversation just with their eyes. If someone understood them, they would sum their conversation with a, "We'll convene about this later." Unlike you, there are others who don't like to go to war. War takes many lives, too many. And for what? A simple struggle between two countries or even two persons. Is it not because of this policy that our economy bloomed? You are talking about it as if this policy hasn't showed its worth. Countered Sarutobi, to which Danzo answered by, "You mean, like the incident between the Hyuga clan and Kumo?" Need I remind you just how you choose to sacrifice one of our own even though Kumo was clearly in the wrong? At least, it allowed us to escape a war that we had little chance of winning in our state. Sarutobi fired back. Don't kid yourself. You very well know that if it had come to war, we'd have won, simply because their Jinchuriki Killer Bee wasn't yet as powerful as nowadays, same with their cage. That is just a reason for you to justify your inactions. Speaking of which, remind me what were the consequences of your decisions again? Said Danzo with a sneer. Seeing that none of the three were willing to answer, he answered his own question. We lost a good chunk of our customers, because they thought we were just all talk but no actions whatsoever. Because of this, several minor villages increased their attacks on us thinking our village was weak and trying to take us out. And as always, who got us out of this situation? Root, said Danzo, snarling at the end, having lost any kind of control over his emotions. Just like before, the three stayed silent. What could they said? After all, everything Danzo said was the truth. The consequences of his decision had been dire. The only reason they had recovered from this was because of what happened with Kusagakure. After that event, not only they got their customers back, but also no one wanted to mess with them anymore. Anyway, unlike you, I have other things to do. So if you will excuse me now, said Danzo, rising from his chair, before walking toward the exit when Sarutobi said, if you are manipulating Namikaze-san, I will find out and make you pay dearly for this. Danzo, hearing this, didn't even look back at Sarutobi but answered anyway. You are so focused on finding a way to take back Namikaze. Always thinking that I'm the one manipulating him. Did it ever occur to you that you might be wrong? Do you know which question I'm always asking myself? He looked at Sarutobi from the corner of his eye and said in an ominous voice. Which one is manipulating the other? He finished just before he closed the door, signaling his departure. Inside the room, Sarutobi and his advisors were still in a meeting. Having regained their senses after everything Danzo told them, they were talking in hushed tone. You think it will be enough to distract him? Asked Homura. I do. He seemed quite pleased to hear that we're trying to retrieve the Namikaze. He'll be busy with this for a while, giving us ample time to move without his notice. Said Sarutobi, smirking. That is good to hear. But still, what he said at the end have me thinking. I have a bad feeling about this. Said Kaharu softly. You worry too much. Once everything is in place, he won't be able to do a thing. Now this meeting is adjourned. Finished Sarutobi with the advisors nodding. Forest of Death. A day had gone by since Team 9 went inside the Forest of Death, and they still hadn't found the scroll they were looking for. They had encountered 3 other teams after the first one Naruto dispatched. But as if the gods were against them, none of those teams possessed an Earth Scroll. So now they had a total of 5 Heaven Scrolls. Having stopped to rest the night before, they were now moving, or rather jumping from trees to trees, looking for another prey. I hope we find an Earth Scroll soon. I'm getting tired of this forest. Tenten grumbled while jumping over a branch. Tell me about it. It's like we're cursed or something. Lee fired back, before looking at Naruto to his left. Nothing to say, hot shot. Naruto, deep in thoughts, was a little surprised by the question, but quickly steeled his gaze. Instead of questioning me, you should focus on the objective, overgrown eyebrow. Tenten stifled a giggle at that, while Lee's eyebrow twitched. He opened his mouth to reply, when a violent gust of wind slammed on him, making him fly far away from his team. Recognizing the wind for what it was, Naruto and Tenten came to a stop, before looking around them, trying to spot the attacker. A few seconds later, Naruto angled his face to look on his left, just in time to see a kunoichi appear on branch. Tenten, seeing Naruto's reaction, followed suit, gazing at their would-be attacker. Naruto immediately narrowed his eyes to slit when he recognized the stranger. What does he want? He has no reason to be after Tenten, and he blew Lee away, so he must be after me. He adopted a defensive stance. The kunoichi looked amused at the two, as she noticed the shifting in stance from Naruto, quickly followed by Tenten. Maybe they aren't called the strongest genin team of Konoha for nothing, she thought, smiling creepily. Kukukuku, I have heard so much about you, Namikaze-san. So much that I'm eager to see what you are made of. The way she phrased it seemed so wrong to the genins. Still, not one to be outdone, Naruto fired back. I didn't know my fame had reached even a village like Kusagakure. I'm honored. No, the pleasure is all mine, Kukuku. Unfortunately, I would be more inclined to show you my might if you were to have an earth scroll, miss. Sorry I didn't catch your name, Kunoichi-san. Continued Naruto. The kunoichi smiled at that. Smartass. That's because I didn't gave you my name, but nice try. Whatever you say, girl, he emphasized with a mock bow, all the while keeping an eye on his opponent. On the sidelines, Tenten was looking at the exchange with barely concealed annoyance. How can someone be so bipolar? One moment he's cold toward anyone, and the next he's smiling with an obvious enemy, she thought with a scowl. Finally, Naruto looked seriously at the kunoichi, every hint of a smile having disappeared from his face. Now, why would a Sannin like you seek me, a mere genin? And not just any Sannin, but one rumored to be the strongest of the three, Orochimaru the snake summoner. He questioned the kunoichi. Hearing this, Tenten gasped in surprise. She looked at the kunoichi once more to confirm it, just in time to see said kunoichi clapping and smiling appreciatively. Well done, Namikaze-san, well done. I should have known you would recognize me. But I am a little curious, how did you manage such feat? The newly revealed Orochimaru said, before adding a little killing intent at the end, to prompt his targets to answer. He was satisfied to see Tenten shake under the ki in despair. When he looked at Naruto though, he was surprised to see him standing, clearly unaffected. Oh, he can shrug this amount of ki already. Interesting, he thought. Naruto, seeing the state Tenten was in, couldn't help but sigh in frustration. If I was alone I could easily flee from this place, but with her around, it will be more difficult. He thought before raising his head just in time to see Orochimaru retrieve a kunai from his pouch. Damn. Acting quickly, he took a kunai with a note attached to it, and threw it at Orochimaru. The latter was surprised to see Naruto throw his weapon at the same time he did, despite having gone for it first. Wasting no time, Naruto put his hand on Tenten's shoulder while holding a ram seal with his other hand. Shunshin no jutsu, he thought just before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Meanwhile, the kunai he launched exploded in front of Orochimaru, destroying a good chunk of the tree he was standing on. When the smoke was cleared, there was nothing left behind. Naruto appeared 100 meters away from his last location, and quickly went to work. He put his hand on Tenten's forehead, before sending healing chakra to her. The effect was immediate, as she quickly regained her senses back from the shock she endured when she felt Orochimaru's ki. She quickly looked at Naruto alarmed. Oh my god. Naruto, we have to flee now. This is Orochimaru, she yelled hysterically, prompting her teammate to slap her, hard enough to calm her down. He waited a few seconds before speaking. Calmed now, I know we have to escape. But you forgot he is a Sannin. He will follow us easily, or rather you. Right now, I need to, he said as calmly as possible under such conditions, but was interrupted by Tenten's widening eyes. Look out, she yelled, just in time for Naruto to grab her and jump high in the air, doing a back flip at the same time. While upside down, he saw a huge snake pass through where they stood earlier. But he also noticed Orochimaru hiding several meters away from their position. Thinking quickly, he came up with a plan. Once he touched a branch, he set Tenten down, quickly taking a bunch of kunai with notes on them, and handing them to his teammate. Listen well, Tenten. I want you to use those kunais to kill the snake summon. Aim for any weak parts like the eyes or the inside of its mouth. Understood. Tenten slowly nodded, frightened by the situation but willing to survive. Meanwhile, the snake twisted his body until he faced them again. Then he charged again at its targets, moving quickly between the trees and increasing the difficulty for Tenten to aim properly. But she wasn't known and nicknamed as Bullseye for nothing. While she carefully took aim, Naruto closed his eye in concentration. He is moving, he thought, feeling Orochimaru's chakra coming toward them. Now would be a good time, Tenten. Don't rush me. Try aiming for a snake moving like that and you will see just how hard it is. She yelled in frustration. Naruto sighed, knowing it was difficult. He didn't use those kunais himself because he knew that Tenten was way better than him when it came to handling weapons. It was then that he sensed Orochimaru a few meters away from them going through hand seals. Tenten, he yelled. Done. She yelled in response, having finally locked onto her target's weak point, his eyes. She launched two of the kunais, which moved quickly towards their target, perfectly hitting the beast's eyes just before they exploded violently, forcing the snake to dispel, having taken too much damage. At the same time, Naruto quickly went through 4 hand seals, before slamming his right foot on the ground violently. Doden. Dust embrace. He muttered under his breath, too low for anyone to understand. From the impact, a huge amount of dust was lifted, and rose to around 5 meters in height. It covered a good part of the area too. The jutsu was a creation of Naruto. It meant to replace the Kurigakure no jutsu, as he didn't have a water affinity and it would take too much chakra due to perform it. Because of the dust, Orochimaru was forced to stop his charge, not wanting to be taken off guard. He immediately went through hand seals and summoned a violent gust of wind to repel the dust, but was stunned to find that it did nothing more than push it a little. It's like the Kurigakure no jutsu. That means I won't remove it easily. A smart move, as I cannot seem to sense his chakra. But he forgot one crucial detail for his plan, he thought, smirking. For his part, Naruto quickly handed Tenten a mask, while he put another one himself. Those masks were prepared specifically for this jutsu. Because of the dust, it was difficult to breathe, and even dangerous for the health. So he designed a mask that worked like Anbu's ones. One of its ability was to filter the air. Now, how can I escape with Tenten? Shunshin is out of question because it leaves too big a trail for someone as skilled as Orochimaru. I could use my special jutsu that allow me to melt with the earth, but I never tried to use it with someone in tow. What about a modified Shunshin? He thought furiously. He was interrupted though, when he sensed Orochimaru charging toward their exact position, alarming he. How does he know where I am? I'm sure he cannot sense my chakra, and I didn't make any sound. He cannot follow me by smell because of the dust, so how? He tapped Tenten's shoulder, urging her to move. She quickly executed herself and took off in a random direction, with Naruto not far behind. That's it. He must be following us because of Tenten's chakra. Damn, seem like I don't have a choice. He quickly stopped Tenten, who looked at him with a questioning look. Then he did 7 hand seals very quickly. Tsuchi Bunshin, he muttered, and a clone took shape on his left. The clone wasted no time in grabbing Tenten's hand and moving through one-handed seals quickly. A dozen or so seals later, he finished with a one-handed ram seal and muttered. Futon. Fujin. Almost immediately after, the clones in Tenten's body were transformed in wind, before they disappeared, leaving no trail of chakra behind, as it was completely different from Shunshin. Instead of turning into chakra, which was why everyone could sense someone using Shunshin, the user turned every parts of his body into the element wind. He thought of this jutsu just now and was happy that it worked. Meanwhile, Orochimaru, who was moving in the dust by locking on Tenten's chakra, was stunned to feel it suddenly vanish. What happened? How could she disappear so suddenly? He thought, frustrated. On the other hand, Naruto finally smiled in glee. Now that she's not here anymore, I can finally fight the way I like. First thing first, I must stop this dust. It's consuming my chakra way too fast. he thought while slowly sinking into the ground, his body gradually transforming into earth. This was currently his most dangerous jutsu, one he created himself. Like the technique Fujin he just created, it was based on a single principle. Normally when ninjas used jutsu, they manipulated chakra outside the body to affect the nature around them. But thanks to his Bunsekigen, he was able to design specific one-handed seals that manipulated the chakra inside the user's body. It was very dangerous, so he thoroughly tested each jutsu he created by using this principle. He made an exception earlier, because of the situation they were in. Anyway, this particular jutsu allowed him to turn his body into earth, thus allowing him to fuse with every physical material, and move around very quickly. It had the side effect of completely erasing his existence, as he became nothing more than a part of the nature. Just before he was completely swallowed by the ground, two Tsuchi Bunshin formed and then moved toward their target. While the original stayed inside the earth observing calmly the whole fight in a safe place. Now let me see your secrets, Snake Sanin. A few meters away from Naruto, Orochimaru was looking for his target in frustration, as he couldn't sense Naruto at all. Kabuto wasn't kidding when he said the boy was a demon in stealth. To think that a Sanin wouldn't even sense a mere genin. He was quickly losing his patience as time went by. Suddenly he sensed a barrage of flying weapons coming toward his position, fast. He moved to the side, escaping the Senbons he saw pass by him. Another barrage came from behind this time, so he quickly jumped to a branch to take higher ground. Boom! The branch he jumped on exploded, severely damaging him, as he never noticed the exploding note on it, thanks to the reduced visibility. Once the smoke was lifted, only mud was left behind, indicating that Orochimaru was only a clone. One of Naruto's clones, standing upside down on a branch, sighed. He had expected such thing anyway, so he looked for the real Orochimaru, only having to stop feeding chakra to his feet to fall on the ground. Just in time to escape a flamethrower that incinerated the tree he was previously standing on. But it did allow him to find his target position, and quickly moved toward his prey. It wasn't long before he came to the position, only to stop just before an exploding note detonated, almost taking him out too. Shit, that was too close for comfort, he quickly hid himself again. Orochimaru on the other hand, moved quickly through branches, having come to the conclusion that staying put would be dangerous for his health. He came to a halt when he noticed something wrong with his surrounding. Kai! He yelled, just in time to dodge a Senbon that flew by his neck. Damn, I didn't even notice he put me in a genjutsu. He almost had me there. He thought before throwing shurikens toward the clone he located while moving through hand seals. Shuriken Cage Bunshin, he muttered, just before the shurikens transformed in a black rain of weapons. It was then that he heard something that sounded like Doden, Earth's dome. He saw the way the earth moved to form a dome of solid earth, protecting the clone from the rain of shurikens. Not deterred, he went through hand seals again before muttering Kaden, Karyu Enden. Before releasing a huge stream of fire on the dome, heating it, before it disintegrated, incinerating anything inside. Unfortunately, he was forced to stop the jutsu when another Naruto appeared behind him and slammed several times, his palms on his torso. He was propelled toward a tree, and slammed on it. And like before, it turned into mud. The clone seeing this, said out loud. Shit, I am dead. Indeed, said a voice behind him, before he was violently punched in the face. But Orochimaru was surprised when the Naruto turned in mud also. Mud clone too. He thought just before he went through several hand seals. I think I have played long enough. Sweden. Suiryuden no Jutsu. The moment he uttered those words, water surged from the ground, before taking the shape of a huge water dragon and moving through all the dust, rendering it heavier, before it fell on the ground, thus ending Naruto's jutsu. Naruto, seeing this, appeared in front of Orochimaru and sighed in exasperation. At least, he is allowing me to study him thoroughly, without even taking notice of it, he thought, smirking at the end. Orochimaru, seeing the smirk, went through some hand seals quickly, before slamming his palms on the ground yelling. Kuchio's number jutsu. A giant puff of smoke covered him entirely, masking him from Naruto. The latter tensed after recognizing the jutsu, a summoning jutsu tch. I gambled on the fact that he wouldn't use high-costing jutsu considering he could easily be sensed by Anbu because of this. He thought, more surprised than worried. When the smoke was lifted, Orochimaru was standing on a rather large snake with huge scales that appeared to be very strong. He looked at his target, licking his lips in glee. "Show me Namikaze, show me what your blood is capable of," yelled Orochimaru insanely before giving the signal for his snake to charge his target. The snake obeyed quickly by sliding towards Naruto, like a predator after his prey. Unfortunately for it, in this case, no one could safely say who was the predator and who was the prey. Naruto, not wanting to waste energy dodging the snake quickly, slammed a smoke bomb on the ground, hiding him. When the smoke was cleared, he was gone completely. Much to the ire of the snake Sannin, who was looking everywhere for him. It was only thanks to his many years of experience and hard-gained reflex that he was able to dodge a rain of senbons that slammed on the scales of the snake, but fortunately, didn't affect it. Using the direction in which the weapons came from, he looked up, just in time to see Naruto about 50 meters in the sky, going through hand seals at an unprecedented speed even for him. Naruto finished his hand seals for a jutsu he just thought, before extending his right palm in front of him, directed at Orochimaru and his snake. He whispered to himself, "Futon, Buddha's palm." And just like that, the pressure of the air above his target multiplied tenfold and slammed on Orochimaru and his snake with such force that it left a giant handprint on the ground. The snake was completely obliterated and dispelled itself, while at the last second, Orochimaru pulled a kawarimi, escaping the attack, but not without suffering a little from the sudden change in pressure. What the fuck was that? I've never seen such jutsu before. Kukukuku, you interest me even more, Namikaze Naruto, thought the traitor Sannin before looking at the still airborne Naruto. Not wasting any time, he launched 3 kunais at him, after enhancing them with wind chakra. But he was disappointed when instead of hitting their target, Naruto dodged them easily by maneuvering in mid-air using wind manipulation. He couldn't help but be in awe at what a genin was capable of, but quickly got back to the matter at hand, and used a burst of speed to jump in the sky and appear above Naruto, who had his back on him. Perfect Kukukuku. Everyone looking at the sight would have automatically assumed that it was the end for the boy as he couldn't see the incoming Orochimaru, but they wouldn't take into account the fact that Naruto improved his Tsuchi Bunshin so much that now, he could easily share his senses, sight, hearing and the likes, with his clones. So it wasn't surprising when the free-falling Naruto saw Orochimaru above him, thanks to the sight of the real Naruto still fused with the ground and watching the fight. So when Orochimaru was about to drop kick him to the ground, he rotated on himself so fast that an after image of the rotation was still visible. That was the application of the piercing dragon style. Instead of Orochimaru slamming his kick on Naruto, the latter kicked the offending leg to the side, before rotating again and then slamming the same leg straight in Orochimaru's face. He wasn't surprised when Orochimaru disappeared in the form of crumbling dirt. Tsuchi Bunshin, he thought before he finally touched ground. I think I learned enough about him, and all those techniques are taking a toll on the original. Note to myself. Find a way to increase my reserves quickly. At the same time, another Orochimaru appeared behind him and pierced him through his gut. Gua! Naruto coughed violently while looking at Orochimaru, who was smirking at him. Kukukuku Naruto, kun, you are strong indeed, for someone your age. But after seeing this, I just simply cannot allow you to live and reach the level of your late father. If only you had accepted my offer. Finished Orochimaru, removing his sword from Naruto's gut quite roughly. He was surprised though when Naruto didn't even flinch and looked at him in the eyes. Orochimaru of the Sannin, I had assumed that someone of your standing would be able to see through the thin veil of reality. But it seems that I overestimated you. He said, still coughing, while Orochimaru snarled. You said that, yet you're the one who is dying. The smugness in his tone was missed by Naruto. To which Naruto just smirked. Don't you see it? Since the beginning of this fight I knew that I couldn't beat you. So I did the next best thing. Orochimaru leaned in anticipation, and a bit unnerved. I goaded you into revealing more about you and your fighting style to me. While, of me, you learned nothing. After all, what would you learn after fighting only clones? Finished Naruto before crumbling in dust, completely stunning the Sannin to silence. He had never felt so humiliated before now. The last time was when he tried to steal Itachi's body, only to be defeated rather easily by the Uchiha prodigy. But this took the cake. He just noticed right now that he never fought against the real Naruto, not even once. And what stunned him the most was that he came close to death several times while just fighting clones. Granted, in a fair fight, he knew that he could easily defeat Naruto, but from the way he saw Naruto fight, a fair fight didn't exist in his vocabulary. So that was how the Snake Sannin, one of the most powerful ninja in the world, was thoroughly shocked and humiliated by a mere genin. Not very far, merged with a tree, Naruto observed the Sannin sink into the ground with his special Shunshin jutsu. He sighed before quickly using his newly created jutsu Fujin to convert his whole body into air molecule, to move where his clone took Tenten. All the while smiling at all the information he gained from his fight with the Sannin. I can't wait to use this for my training, he thought, smiling, before he disappeared in a gust of wind, leaving behind a devastated forest.